thank you to Andrea and the whole Center for Common Ground team for this invitation. I'm just so thrilled to be here and also to join you in this movement moment, right? I'm thrilled to join you here tonight and share the importance of voting in this moment. Voting is an exercise of power, and by not voting, we abdicate that power. And whether we acknowledge it or not, abdicating that power, there will always be an outcome. And so it's so critical for us to engage in moments like this. And our ancestors, many years before myself and before probably many of you, fought for this right that we have here today. And so as we think about voting, and while each individual exercises our right, we do so not only for ourselves, but on behalf of our families, our communities, and for the greater good of democracy. So thank you all for protecting, leveraging, and exercising your power. Because I know everybody on here is going to vote. I'm not even worried about it. However many people are here, I know we can count on that many voters. And so I look forward to our continued work together. So let's talk about voting and what's coming up in the next couple of months. This November, there are elections in more than 30 states around the country. And we know that local elections influence our daily lives directly. Voters determine things like healthcare, education. Andrea was talking about this in her opening presentation, jobs, civil rights, environmental protections, and so much more. Especially in local elections, the margin of victory is often very small. And so that means that every vote matters even more. And so turning out during midterms, which is traditionally and historically lower turnout, by overwhelming, we make an impact during midterms that affect us during the presidential cycles. So now is the time to get ready for election day. Check your registration, see who's on your ballots, find out where your polling place is, and most importantly, make a plan to vote. So let's talk about why nonpartisan get out to vote efforts are so important. People are sometimes disillusioned by the two major political parties. Based on numbers of people registering as independents and the number of people choosing to sit out, we know that people are feeling disengaged, disenchanted. Nonpartisan groups in particular, especially those located in communities like the Center for Common Good and also the League, we are often the trusted messengers in our community. People trust what we say, people trust how we're showing up, and they trust that we are delivering accurate information. So while politicians and partisan groups sometimes drop into communities only when an election is happening, we are we are the guardians who are there all the time. We're answering questions, helping and serving people. And so community-based nonpartisan groups are made up of trusted messengers that communities are used to talking to. And that is why I think investing in nonpartisan groups to do GOTV work helps really build the infrastructure that's so clearly needed to engage people in civic life, especially in between elections. Groups like the League engage in democracy beyond voting to hold election officials accountable, but also monitor what's happening in government bodies from town to councils to school boards. So, what does it mean to make a plan? Well, we have a tool. The League has a nonpartisan election website, vote411.org, and it has everything a person needs to get ready to make your voice heard. Make sure that you have a voting plan for how, when, and where you will cast your ballot. You can check vote411.org for all of your options for mail voting, voting early, which I know is just passed in 2022 in Virginia, starting next Friday, and even finding your polling place. And that's so important because oftentimes on election day, as a form of voter suppression, polling places change. And so you just want to make sure you're showing up to the right place and that you have the information you need. Next week is a big week. Tuesday, September 16th is National Voter Registration Day. Around the country, companies and organizations like our two organizations are working in communities and online to help people register, new voters in particular. Since the civic holiday was founded, the League has been one of the largest on-the-ground partners for MVRD, and we host hundreds of events all on this day. I think last year we hosted about 1,000 events. And so if you've moved or changed your name since you last voted, it's time to update your voter registration and it's time to check and make sure that you are still on the rolls. And then if you or someone you know needs to register to vote for the first time, Virginia has same day voter registration now, right? So you can actually vote. Yes, you can vote. Even if you find out that you're not registered or you're not on the voting rolls, you can actually register and vote the same day, which is huge for making sure that people can participate in the franchise. If you're not registered to vote, you can also do that through vote411.org. And even if you're already registered, it's always a good idea just to check. The last thing you want to do is show up and have an issue. And so checking in advance will save you some time. And if you have time and you are super ambitious, people power our elections. Every polling place relies on election workers and volunteers in our community. And we have seen a more recent threat against people who are just doing their job to effectuate safe and effective elections. And so if you have time to participate or you know someone who has time to participate, be a poll worker on election day or during the early voting period. There's usually training associated with that, just so you know what you're getting into. And you can also sign up to be a poll worker through vote411.org. We have thousands of people who have registered. We've been proactively trying to get everyday people to be poll workers. So one, you understand how it works, but also to get people engaged. And so planning your ballot. If you, one of the things that people often say is that voting takes work, and it does. It does. It takes a little bit of work. You got to research and figure out who's on your ballot and whether or not they align with your values and your community. And but you have to, we try to make it fun. So when we're planning our ballot, we often have ballot parties where we bring your ballot to a party, let's fill it out together, learn about this candidate. People may have personal experiences with a particular candidate. So we all fill out our ballot, seal it up, and then we either all drop it off together or you drop it off on your way to work or whatever. But make it a community thing because voting has been a community thing and it should be. So let's talk about some of the barriers. Many eligible voters still face obstacles, whether that's restrictive voter ID, whether that's a lack of vote by mail or early voting options, which is not an issue in Virginia, but also long lines and changes to polling places, like I mentioned. So just make sure you're aware of what's going on, what the deadlines are for registration, how you request your ballot, whether you can drop it off a ballot box, you have to go to the Board of Elections or a particular site. Know what you have to do to be prepared to vote. And then, of course, in Virginia, you all have more mechanisms to make it easier. And so take advantage of those. Not every voter has those opportunities. And I will just say, as I start to bring this to a close, voting is not just an individual action. It's a civic duty that strengthens our communities, it strengthens our families. When I try to encourage people to talk to their neighbors, make a voting plan as a part of their family or community. Like there were unfortunately people in my family who did not vote, and I was devastated. I was like, "Do y'all know what I do for a living? I'm a voting rights attorney." Vote. So now I have made it my mission in my family, not only my immediate family, but my extended family, to make sure that everyone in my family that I have contact with, that they are ready to vote in their local elections in 2026 and heading into 2028. So just remember, I mean, I often vote as an individual, but I vote on behalf of my nieces and nephews who are still in school, the school board people, the people who are making decisions about our roads, the people who are making decisions about the judges who are making decisions that impact our families. But all of those things matter. And also vote early. I always encourage people to vote early and to vote absentee, especially for people with busy schedules or if you have mobility constraints. Waiting at the last minute increases the risk. Sometimes the weather is bad. We know it's November. It's probably going to be a cold winter, y'all. So y'all need to try to vote September 19th through October 21st. Busy polling places, but also just unexpected issues. We had issues in 2022 where the voting machines didn't work and people were delayed. Vote early and you can avoid some of those things. I've already talked about how local races matter, but also some form of local government decides how much you pay in property taxes, whether you have to, what schools are going to have certain books, what housing, what your kids can learn in school. All of those things are people we elect to make decisions that affect not only ourselves, but our families. And so, some final thoughts. And I want to leave, I always try to close with some action items. So, as voters, we all have an equal say in determining our future. That is why it's so important to go cast your vote. The leaders we elect will make decisions that affect our everyday lives, whether it be our jobs, our healthcare or access to it, the economy, and so much more. Please, please, please tell your friends, your family, and your neighbors to be an active voter, not only on election day, but leading up to election day, especially in Virginia where you have that opportunity. Check your voter registration and make sure that you are still on the rolls and that you can vote easily on election day, and mark your calendar for November 4th. So I just want to say thank you for being an active participant in democracy in advance, because I already know. So I'll just close with this. We have the power to be the change that we want to see. And I know that each of us can do our part. Each of us have a part in protecting democracy, and I hope that we use it. So let me just share a few things that I think are required in this moment as we head not only to this election, but as we continue to do work in communities. The first thing is that we have to have unequivocal solidarity. It is so critical for us to be in solidarity with each other and the work that we're doing. Relationships, consider those your infrastructure. That is your infrastructure to build, to grow. Unity does not mean uniformity. Just because we are unified, we may all do things differently to get to the end goal, and that is okay. We have to accept it. Finally, embracing the multitude of strategies that, as long as our strategies are pulling in the same direction, we are still holding power. So important to understand that multiple strategies is not a bad thing. It's just the diversity of perspectives coming together. And then finally, resources. Organizations like the Center for Community Good, the League, and other organizations, we need resources to do our work effectively. So do what you can to support the movement with your time, your volunteerism, and your dollars. So thank you so much. So thank you so much for this invitation. And for all of you all on tonight, I will see each of you in the fight. Thanks.